Hey folks, Mike McElroy with Center Coast Realty. Today we are going to talk about a home buying decision that comes up early in the process that can absolutely make or break the rest of your home buying plans all the way up until closing day. And that decision is, of course, where to get your mortgage. Specifically, should you get your mortgage from the bank that you have your checking and savings account with, a major retail national bank that we've all heard of, or should you get your mortgage from a bank that specializes in mortgages? Now, there are a ton of different kinds of banks and different ways to get a mortgage that would bore you to tears, to be honest, if we talked about them in this video. So today we're going to focus on these two broad categories. The major national banks where you have your checking and savings typically at, or a specialty bank that only does mortgages. So let's get into it. First, I'm going to give you the case for going with your current bank, the one that has your checking and savings account. The big one right off the bat, obviously, convenience, right? You have one login. You can go see how much money you have. You can go see if you got paid today, and you can pay your mortgage. Convenient, right? Additionally, depending on your financial situation and depending on the type of property that you're buying, you might get a slightly better interest rate on the mortgage that you get through a big national bank. And that's compelling. You're the one who has to make that payment every single month, not us. Now let's talk about the case for going with a specialty bank that just focuses on mortgages. The big one that you're going to notice is appraisal. Okay? So when you go with a national bank, they're typically going to go with the cheapest possible appraiser they can get. Sometimes that person drives quite a ways to get to the property that you're about to buy. And if that's the case, they may not know the area quite as well. Somebody who does a ton of appraisals in the area that your home is located is going to know the area well, and here's why that's important. If that appraisal comes in over the amount that you paid, no big deal, great. It doesn't really mean anything. If it comes in under the amount that you agreed to pay the seller, that is going to throw a huge wrench into your deal. And to be honest, we'll do a separate video about what to do if that happens, but to be honest, most of the time it means you're probably not getting that house, which is a huge bummer because the appraisal typically happens a little bit later in the process. You've already started to plan on buying this place. You might have your other home on the market. You might have booked movers already. It's a big problem. And that's a lot more common with a big national bank than with a specialty bank that only does mortgages. Next case for going with a specialty bank, red tape. There's a lot less of it. I'm going to tell you two quick stories. One time, we had a situation where we needed to get an appraisal done stat. It's complicated, but it was going to kill the deal if we didn't get an appraisal done within the next 3 days. That's insane to get that done. But because we were working with a specialty bank, because we were working with a lender that frankly we do a lot of business with, that person was able to walk over to the appraisal department, which was in the same building, and get that done for us. It absolutely saved this deal. That buyer would not have the home that she lives in today if we weren't able to make this happen. Contrast it with another recent transaction that we did. Our sellers had listed their home for sale and gone under contract, great news, and we're now off trying to buy their next home. The buyer switched from the local lender that they were originally using to a big national bank. And weeks went by and we didn't hear about an appraisal. This was a major problem for our clients because they were trying to buy their next place and they needed to know that they were going to be able to sell this place. So we talked to the buyers and they were able to talk to the bank who put a rush on the appraisal. And the appraisal would now be back, they said, in the next 10 days. It took 12. That was a rush, okay? And in that whole time, our sellers were thinking about potentially pulling out of the deal because the buyer wasn't able to get it together to allow them to move on to the next step. Could have been a huge issue. Fortunately, it wasn't, but trust me, it's a lot of stress you don't necessarily want. Another time, the appraiser that they hired took a photo of a window and that had some peeling paint on it. Now, this can be a problem for an FHA mortgage, but this wasn't an FHA mortgage. It was a conventional mortgage. The underwriter at this bank wouldn't let the deal through until that window was painted. And the sellers, who had already moved out, and I think we're out of state at this point, understandably said, no, we're not doing that. That's dumb. So our buyers had to hire a handyman. Actually, I think they just went over there themselves. Did they go over there themselves? Yeah, okay. So our buyers literally went over there themselves with a bucket of paint and painted this window so that the bank would let the loan through. If you want to do stuff like that, go with your big national bank. If you don't want to do stuff like that, go with a local lender. or that will never happen. And if it does, we'll actually have someone to call in order to just smooth that over and make it go away, as opposed to so much red tape that we can't. Next one, are you buying a condominium or any property with a homeowners association? Guess what? Not only does your bank need to approve you for a mortgage, but they actually need to review all the documents from your homeowners association to make sure they want to approve the HOA for a mortgage. They also need to review a whole bunch of documents from your HOA and a questionnaire to make sure they're willing to lend in that homeowners association. Now, this should be a simple checkbox, simple step. But the problem is big national banks have a condo approval department that's in a completely different city, probably a different state from the person that you're actually talking to, that you have daily communication with. And we see this all the time. They send these really complicated questionnaires to the person who just happened to draw the short straw and get stuck with managing the building. And this person has a real job and they don't know what any of this stuff means. And so guess what happens? It sits in their inbox for days or maybe even weeks. And the whole time you don't know if you're actually going to be able to get a mortgage for this place. And to be honest, for some of these smaller buildings, we've had banks have issues lending in them. Not for any good reason, but just because they're not quite as fastidious with their record keeping and some of the P's and Q's of running a condo association. No major reasons that actually scared our buyers off, just issues that the bank had with it. So you might be under contract for your home and weeks go by and all of a sudden you find out you can't get a mortgage from your bank for this condo. You don't want that to happen when you've already booked movers and picked out some furniture. We've also had issues where loan officers are a little bit more careless with the pre-approvals that they issue. They don't spot some of the red flags that are going to be a problem later in the process, usually solvable, but much more solvable when they're dealt with early in the process than a week before closing, when again, you've got movers coming, you've got a couch that's getting delivered, and you need to be able to close on time. All the stuff I'm talking about may kill your deal, it may not. But what it does do is result in delays. And delays can make your process a whole lot less enjoyable. And these delays can be a big, even costly deal if you're already under contract to sell your old home before you buy the new one, if you have a lease ending, if your movers are coming and they don't know where to bring your stuff, if you have a couch getting delivered. Is your blood pressure rising yet? Because mine is. I'm triggering myself at the moment. Don't let this happen to you. And if you're wondering, oh my God, Mike, who hurt you? The answer is big national banks that don't specialize on mortgages and frankly, don't really care if they're able to get yours done on time. That's who hurt me. So don't make these mistakes. We'll be happy to set you up with a list of lenders who've done right by our clients over the years. And again, if you have any specific questions, fill out the form at the link below, and we'd be happy to schedule 15 minutes, talk you through some of your options. Or if you just need a couple of lender recommendations, we'll be happy to give you those too. We're going to be adding to this list as we go, more and more tips for home buyers to make sure that your home buying journey is a big success. So subscribe to make sure you get those updates, and we'll see you next time.